I'm at the beautiful, historic Redford Theater right here in Detroit, Michigan. To my right is the Barton organ, one of the many things that makes this theater so special. When you come to the Redford Theater to see a movie, one of the amazing things is 30 minutes prior to the movie, you are treated to a musical overture for 30 minutes. This organ is capable of producing sound that sounds like an entire orchestra is behind it. And so it makes attending a movie here absolutely spectacular. The Redford Theater is truly a gem here in Michigan, and we're going to learn more about it tonight on Cult Pop. I'm with Steve Overstreet, and Steve's a board member here at the Redford Theater. And Steve's here at just about every movie doing whatever kind of work needs to be done. And Steve, thanks so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure.
Really happy to be here. We've talked many times about how much I just absolutely love this theater. And I really want to kind of help get the word out, because even though you have great crowds, you've mentioned that a new movie comes out and 50% of the audience will say they're first time people here. I want to get the word out. This is a real historic gem and I absolutely adore it. So let's jump right in. And if you could, let's talk a little bit about the history of the Redford Theater.
All right, it's quite a lot. The theater was actually built in 27. We opened it in 1928 in January. So we'll be celebrating our 90th anniversary this coming January. We're already planning for some special events. It was built as a Japanese theater, but not originally designed as a Japanese theater. The motif is Japanese now, but it came as a result, is my understanding, that it came a result of the husband and the wife going to Japan, who owns the theater back in 28, Kunsky's, who owns several theaters in Detroit. And she liked the Japanese concept so much that she told her husband, when they return, she wanted him to redesign the theater and turn it into a Japanese-style theater. So, of course, he wanted to make her happy, and he did. And it is one of only possibly 2 Japanese-themed theaters in the United States, several Chinese, but not Japanese. Sometimes hard to tell the difference. It was opened as, I'm going to quote it, America's most unique suburban playhouse. And at the time, we were still showing silent films. So it was built not only as a vaudeville theater with a full working stage, but it was built as a silent movie palace, which is why they installed the Barton theater organ.
The beautiful organ.
Pipe organ. The theater organ has been the highlight of the theater. And it's interesting because the Motor City Theater Organ Society owns the theater, owns the organ, owns the theater, but they initially became involved for about 4 years restoring and maintaining the organ, which is what is pretty common. Societies take care of organs, but they don't own theaters. We're actually the only member of the American Theater Organ Society that owns its own theater out of the whole country.
And isn't this one of, I thought the number was like 4 in the country where remaining theaters where it was built around or something?
Yeah, you may be correct, I don't know. I know the Michigan Theater also has a Barton organ, very similar to this. And Michigan, I think, opened in 1928. We opened in 28, pretty close to the same time. And they still use theirs and we still use ours. And actually, one of our volunteers of like 40 years, who is also one of our projectionists, Tom Hurst, has been responsible for maintaining this incredible instrument, which is going to be 80 years old in January. And as long as we can still get or make various parts as they wear out, there is no actual life expectancy. It could last as long as the building lasts.
That's amazing. Earlier this year, you had a silent film festival here.
Right.
And you brought in a special organist from New York.
Right.
And he kind of did a tutorial in between and talking about, and I learned more about that each key operates a specific thing. But it really is amazing when you have a pre-show, when you come to the Redford Theater, you get a half-an-hour pre-show, and you've got a person that's on.
We have several organists
on staff that come in, and everything from the national anthem before the movie, which I think is wonderful, but they'll do a medley of songs and get people clapping and cheering and singing along. And I think it's absolutely amazing and kind of a throwback. You go back in time when you visit the.
Well, and this is like a time capsule that you can actually walk into and enjoy. And the whole idea is to make it feel like 1928, with a few modern techniques, But getting back to the history, it was very successful initially until World War II, and then the public started to become disenfranchised to anything that reminded them of Japan, for obvious
Because of the war,
reasons.
sure.
So during that time period and afterwards, the walls were painted gray, the accoutrements were removed, anything reminding anyone of Japan was taken out. The organ was not used, it was kind of covered up. The walls were covered up, the pipes were covered up, and whatever they could remove, they took out. Everything else was painted over with battleship gray. And it stayed like that for quite a while. And as TV became more and more popular, the public stopped going to movies during that time period, because TV was kind of new, 50s, 60s. And so the theater kind of started falling on hard times. We became involved in the early 70s and to maintain the organ, and then I think 74, the owners decided they wanted to ditch it. They offered it to the society, our society, and it was a huge leap of faith because we weren't in a position to buy a theater.
Sure.
So we took out the loans and caused a lot of concern that we could pull it off, but we did to save the organ. So this theater was purchased by the Motor City Theater Organ Society in order to save and preserve the Barton. And now we comment that the theater has become so successful in its own right that the Barton is, the theater is now saving the Barton.
Right.
Initially the Barton saved the theater, now the theater is saving the Barton, because we want to maintain that. So after the Organ Society bought it, which is an all-volunteer 501c3 nonprofit. I've never run into any place like it. I worked for a nonprofit for 35 years. I've never heard of a nonprofit that was able to accomplish what this volunteer group has accomplished over the last almost 40 years. All the restoration of the facility.
Now let's go. Now at what point then, when it was purchased in the 70s, is that when the decision was made to bring it back to the
Yes.
1920s look?
Yes.
Okay.
So a massive undertaking. If you can imagine this theater covered up in gray with heavy curtains over everything, all the Japanese symbol signs were all taken out. We found pictures, which we have upstairs, on display, of the original 1928 openings. I love them because they got the old 1928 cars parked out in front. And they did find some of the stencils. We had some made. And then the long, arduous process began of putting all of this back. Paneling had to be removed in the lobbies. It was all covered up with the crummy paneling of the 60s. Drop ceilings. I mean, it was unimaginable what had been taken place.
And how long did that whole process take?
We are still working on it.
Well, keeping in mind that, there's constantly upgrades going on here.
There are.
But to go from that drab gray we were talking about to this, was it a couple of years to get it?
Oh, no,
Many
because
years?
all of this was hand painted on scaffolds, and it was the auditorium, most of it was hand painted by one of our volunteers who was afflicted with multiple sclerosis, so he couldn't even walk. So he laid on scaffolding and painted it. We've got pictures of that.
Now we need to mention, so the Japanese motif is amazing, but one of the things that's always captured me that I've absolutely loved is the ceiling.
The ceiling.
And the stars. Talk a little bit about
Yes,
the ceiling.
the ceiling was always an atmospheric ceiling, even when it was built. The only difference now, and an atmospheric ceiling is one that you look up to. It looks like the sky. It looks like we're outside at a Japanese tea garden. That's the idea. And you see the stars, and they twinkle. And then we have two cloud machines, so the clouds actually move around the sky while you're looking at it. Probably 10 years ago, I think, it was just before we came, there was thousands of feet of wiring with actual bulbs in the ceiling, and the bulbs, of course, had to be replaced often. So they upgraded about 10 years ago to fiber optics, and we went from a massive, like 6-foot board of electronic pulls to operate it down to a 3-inch square box. So now we don't have to change the bulbs because it's basically LED.
It is just so fun to look at, and it's such a treat. I'm always trying to bring first timers here, people that are new to the theater, and I say, look up.
Look up.
And they're all captured by, there's a lot of special things. The ceiling is amazing. At Christmas time, talk a little bit about your displays and the train set and the Christmas display as well.
Yeah, the entire front of the orchestra pit, the whole orchestra pit, is completely covered up with the platform. We have it up today. And it takes about 6 weeks to 8 weeks. 2 of our young volunteers, Jacob Malbuff, he's I think 20, he owns the sets, and they build a massive train display with 4 operating trains, a mountain, hundreds of buildings, and it's all lit, and it's all operating at the same time. And we have people that come every holiday season, Christmas season. I've heard lots of people say, whatever movie's playing is fine, but I come and I bring my kids and I bring my family to see the train. And people line up across the front of the auditorium and just stand there and are amazed at this whole thing that's operating.
It's
and
something
it really
special.
Is
It
amazing.
really, and a giant Christmas tree off to the side.
Giant
and
Christmas
then you
tree.
can, the organ will be going at halftime. So
Right.
I think this is a good time. This kind of sets the stage. I'd like for you to set the stage to somebody coming for the first time to the Redford Theater and how it's so different. We've got a balcony. All the kids, no kids know what a balcony is.
No,
there,
you're
there
right.
are no movie theaters with balconies anymore.
No.
But let's set the stage, because everything from a half an hour prior to the show, the organ music begins. The national anthem is played. The great deals outside with the food and candy. One of the most important things that I haven't brought up, folks, is that when you come to the Redford Theater, you don't go broke.
That's true.
Typical ticket is $5. The snacks, and I like my snacks, and I like my pop, but you spend $5 and you get a popcorn, and a $1 candy bar. It's unbelievable. But so set the stage. Walk somebody in here. Let's say we're here for the weekend and we're seeing Jaws, which is going to be here this weekend.
Right.
And you get here, there's 50-50 raffles and all that. Set the stage and tell people what they're going to see.
Parking, we do have parking, free parking for everybody. We always have
secured
free
parking.
And it's all secure with security guards. It's a very safe area. We've been here forever, and everybody knows us and loves us in this area. So you walk in, and the first thing, especially first timers, they're amazed at the lobby. Even the outer lobby is pretty spectacular. You see the 50-50 counter, you see all the doors going into, and they don't know what they're coming into. So as they walk through, then they walk into what we call the inner lobby, which has 2 Gone with the Wind type grand 3-story staircases, one on each side. The concessions counter right in front, and our candy is either the small boxes are all $1, the big boxes are all $2. So it's pretty amazing. I mean, it really is. And then we have the pop and the popcorn and sweet potato cookies from Sweet Sensations that are made fresh for us across the street. So we've often had people comment when they're at the concessions counter that they're buying for a whole family and they may have spent 60 or 70 at one of the box theaters.
Sure.
They come here and they may spend 15.
Right.
And it really does blow them away. Then, after they get that, they walk into the main auditorium, not realizing that it's 1,600 seats. And they start walking in and they see the stage and they see the logo and they see the organ playing, and it's breathtaking, especially with the lower lights on and the stars and the clouds, and it really does typically blow people away. And then they may decide to go to the balcony and often ask, is the balcony still open? And it is, it's all been restored. And we have over 600 seats in the balcony. So and we have a loge, so the first 5 rows up front are like really prime seats. A lot of people like the balcony.
I love the balcony. If you've never seen a movie from the balcony, you've got to do it.
I love the balcony too. And we've had older people that have come and said, we had our first date, last row in the upper balcony. I mean, we hear that all the time, you know, and not necessarily from the 20s, but even the 50s and the 60s
sure.
and 70s. So it's an exciting, it's exciting. You can almost always tell a newcomer because they always get their phone out and they start looking up and they start taking pictures, because it's pretty spectacular.
Well, I love when people come and say, "Is that open? Can I go up there?
Right.
What is that?" Because I get here usually an hour before the film starts because I know, people. I say hi to a lot of the people, 50-50. I'll get a seat, and then if I'm sitting down here, I like to go on the balcony, but sometimes if you're just walking around here, or I try to bring new people to the theater and I'll walk them around, then people say, "What's that?" Because you walk in, like you did a great job of describing what's going on. And you'll see those staircases, but you really don't know where those are going, and you're a first timer. So you walk in and then, oh, wow. And the balcony is the size of most big theaters. Just those seats are the size of a big theater. And then you have all these seats down here. And when the movies start, you always have somebody kind of talking a little trivia and all kinds of stuff. Right. Hey, a shout out to the people up top. And I absolutely adore that, and I love going up there, and that's my favorite place to see a movie.
Yeah.
A neat thing that you've done as a fundraiser is that people can sponsor a chair.
Yes.
And let's talk a little bit about that. I think that's kind of special, is that a lot of things need to be done, as this is a nonprofit, to raise money throughout everything from 50-50 drawings to the chair. I think that's really a neat process. Talk about that.
Yeah, because we have 1,600 seats, there are a number of brass plates that are on almost half of them now, and they can be in commemoration of a parent who has passed away, or yourself, or whoever you want. I mean, we just got 2 seats that a couple bought, honoring their dog and cat that had just passed away. And so now we have 2 brass tags on 2 seats for their 2 animals. They didn't want their names on it, just the animals. So people do it for a variety of reasons, but I mean, it's there. It's there as long as this theater is standing, and that's going to be a long time. So we also have something very interesting. The first, second, and third row in the center have seat tags commemorating all the movie stars that have actually visited us as our guests over the years. The oldest, the oldest one is probably Marlene. No, not Marlene. Well, I don't know, one of them. I can't even remember them all. But I mean, lots of famous people. Tippi Hedren. Shirley Jones, Rita Moreno, it goes on and on.
Bruce Campbell is going to be coming later in the year.
Has a seat because The Evil Dead was premiered here in 1981, world premiere, and he's coming back in August. We're showing Evil Dead again, so yeah.
Steve, this is a perfect segue to talk about, and we're going to come back to volunteerism and fundraising and all that, because it's real important. But I really wanted to talk about a lot of the special events and different things that go on that make this above and beyond. A movie experience is great here, just coming to see a movie like Sandlot or whatever. A quick thing I wanted to mention about, one of the things I love about the organ show prior to any movie, they'll specialize. If you're seeing a baseball film, they're going to play Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Maybe a gangster film, and they're playing things from. So every time you come to a movie, you're going to get a different organ presentation. It's not the same stuff week in and week out. They specialize. If there's special songs in the film, they play those special songs. And I think that really makes it special. So I want
and we have
know that.
5 to 6, I forget, 5, maybe 6 organists that rotate, and they donate their time for those. Nobody here gets paid, for our regular operation.
Sure. They're just doing that as a volunteer thing. But I really wanted to talk about special events, not only the ones that are coming up, but you've had some wonderful guests in the past that talk about their films. We'll sign autographs. Everybody from The Ghoul to Tippi Hedren, Bruce Campbell's coming. And then you do special things like, this is a theater also where live performances go on.
Yes.
And you've had everything from little circuses to performances. So talk about all these type of things.
Well, I mean, that's basically one of my bigger jobs here, is coordinating a lot of special events. And we had Mosaic, the youth theater troupe, performing troupe. They held one of their big concerts here this past spring. They've already booked us for next spring. They love the theater because they get to work on a huge stage. And we've had the Popovich Animal Circus that's coming back in November of this year from Las Vegas. very popular show. Bruce Campbell, as you mentioned, is the movie star from the Evil Dead series. He's coming for autograph signing and VIP, and so we're real excited about that.
Tippi Hedren has come.
Tippi
and
Hedren
that's
has
been
come
amazing,
twice,
right?
For the Birds. Shirley Jones, Rita Moreno for West Side Story. I mean, and here's an interesting one. George C. Scott actually was an usher here around 1930.
Oh, wow.
Before he found fame and fortune in Hollywood. So this theater has some rich history. The other big show that's coming up in August also, August 10th, is Jackson Browne. He's coming for a live concert, and he's going to be performing, and that's being sponsored by Live Nation, and I'm pretty sure that that's pretty well sold out. There may be a few single seats.
And that's wonderful because that's a fundraiser for
the Redford and the
theater
community.
and the community around it. So
right,
I think
because
that's
we
wonderful.
are trying to create a performing arts center in this community.
I think that's
in a variety of
wonderful.
ways.
I want to talk a little bit when we're talking about all these things. When you bring a guest, Bruce Campbell, Tippi Hedren, it's not just, they share wonderful stories. Then there's
They
autograph
do.
sessions. And usually, like with Tippi Hedren, you have an opportunity for a little bit more money to maybe have coffee and a snack or
VIP.
something, VIP events. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we're actually doing a VIP with Bruce Campbell also, which sold out. But when we do a VIP, our typical VIP is that it's in the afternoon, but it's after the matinee, and people buy tickets. They're more expensive. You get an autograph signed photo of the movie or one of their personal photos. You get to meet them, talk to them, have a picture taken with them, the star. And for Bruce Campbell, we're including his new book that he's on a book tour of the United States. You get his book and you get an autograph on the book, and he'll do one more autograph
right.
while
That's
he's right here in
fantastic,
person.
right.
There's a 5-hour autograph signing that night. And then you get a poster of the event, which we're in the process of having made. And so, yeah, our VIPs often have food. We have chocolate fountains. We have dessert tables. I mean, we had all kinds of stuff.
And then the day of the show, one of the things I really wanted to highlight, when Tippi Hedren comes and talks about birds, she'd stand up and she'd answer questions from stage.
Yes.
And it was like watching a documentary. More stuff was shared. It's not just little great tidbits about really
stuff.
significant stuff.
Yeah.
And this past, so that was fantastic. And every single star you've had gives a lot of time. It's not just, hi everybody, this is my film, enjoy. It's 5, 10, 15 minutes worth of talk. Then at halftime, hey, let me talk a little bit more. So it really makes it something special. You had Revenge of the Nerds this summer, and local boy made good comes back, and he shared some great stories.
Yeah.
And that was a good 20, 30 minute opportunity. So it's one of the many things that makes this, the events that makes this such a special place to me. But as we're going on in time here, we still have a little bit of time. I want to make sure we give enough time to let you talk about volunteerism and fundraising and all those things that really help this machine tick. One of the things you were talking about is the projectionist has been volunteering here for 40 years.
2 of them.
I see people that I recognize, been coming about 12, 14 years now, and I see the same people. You can certainly use influx of more volunteers, can certainly use money. You're constantly working on upgrades, like the ladies' restroom you were working on, or maybe signage, or whatever you're doing. There's constantly upgrades. So this is your time to tell people about that type of stuff and how we can learn out there, how people can donate financially or donate their time.
Okay. Well, of course, purchasing a seat is a great way to do it. $250 unless you want one down by the stars, and then it's $500. The movies, of course, support us. The concession supports us. And then a lot of donor gifts. There's lots of donations that we get. The problem is that, like all nonprofits, it's never going to be enough, because we're tackling not only maintaining it, but continuing to improve it. And people have no idea. I mean, this is an enormous theater. 2 years ago, the heat bill for January, which is one of our coldest months, 2 years ago in January, the heat bill was $5,000. So for 1 month, heating for $5,000. Our water bill now, with the new Detroit water leverage system, we've been hit with a $1,500 a month
Wow.
water bill. Not just water bill, but the sewage bill.
Sewage.
So, I mean, it takes a massive amount of money, and we depend on big gifts, small gifts. I mean, a lot of people give us small gifts.
And you can, you're certainly welcome to corporate sponsors. You'd love some more corporate sponsorships?
Absolutely. We are a nonprofit. We're a 501c3, so it is all tax deductible. Our current project is the ladies' restroom. Phase 1 is done. That's where you walk in and see the sinks. Phase 2 is under construction. The ladies are thrilled. we had a member give us $1,000 to try and help move that along. But we really need, I mean, if we're being honest, we have to replace the roof. We need to replace the marquee. I mean, we're talking probably $1 million worth of work to really bring this theater up.
And I forgot to mention earlier, just there's so much to talk about. One of the things that makes this theater so special is the 35 millimeter capabilities of this theater.
Yes.
That is a very expensive thing to continue to upgrade and keep going. And you can show films digitally if need be, but one of the thrills is seeing a 70 millimeter or a 35 millimeter film. That costs money to do that. So let's let people know how they can donate. Where do people go? They're going to watch this, they're going to say, I want to help out. I want to do stuff. And you can look at the camera and tell people how they can learn more about the theater, how they can donate, how they can help. And I'm sure there's some businesses that watch the show that might want to sponsor. Let them know what they
We
can
are
do.
always looking for sponsors. We're looking for a sponsor for Bruce Campbell, actually. We have a fabulous website. It's a great website. It was professionally prepared as a donation. And it tells you just about everything you want to know about the theater, the history, how to donate, how to become a member, because we're all volunteers, no paid staff. And the number is on the website. You can also take a virtual tour. If you haven't ever been here and you want to get a glimpse, you can take a virtual tour, Compliments of Google, right on the website under Take a Tour. So, I mean, it shows all the upcoming events that we have posted, some of them as late as November. We'll be posting our fall schedule, late fall, early winter, in the next 3 or 4 weeks. Our new cards come out then. But I think the important thing is that all this work, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of people. We're on the 50-50, 6 or 8 people, concessions, managers, projectionists that are always here. We identify whether it's 35 millimeter or digital. We only show digital because we can't always get 35 millimeter. It's just not available anymore. So we're capable of doing any kind of MP3 even. Blu-ray, it doesn't make any difference. We're very capable.
And while you're saying that, not to interrupt your sales pitch, but another thing people are going to want to know at home is that you can rent this theater.
Yes.
And examples are like the Film Noir. It's a whole week of LA sponsored event that comes out here. A couple of years ago, a gentleman had an event showing old horror and science fiction movies. And it was like a 2-day, little 2-day event. So that's something. There's so many possibilities, and I just want to
that's
make
really
sure.
important, because that's another way we raise money, by renting the theater. Every other week is pretty well open, most of the time. We do weddings. We do 4 to 5 weddings a year. It's an incredible wedding venue. Our daughter was married on stage. That's how my wife and I got involved. And we do plays, we do concerts, a jazz concert maybe coming next year. I mean, just about, we've done bodybuilding shows, we've done modeling shows, you name it, and we've done a step dancing.
Well, Steve, what I will make sure we do is we're going to put up the summer and fall schedules so people know what's coming out. Let people know. On our website, they're going to be able to link up directly to yours. And as I told you before the show is going to end before you even realize it. Our time's going to be up. Our time is up. I wanted to thank you so much for being on the show. You know, I absolutely adore this place. You've always been so kind to me. I thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show today, and I really appreciate all the work you and all the other volunteers do here at the Redford Theater.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for being on. We want to thank the Redford Theater for being such wonderful hosts today. I want to thank Steve Overstreet. Wonderful interview and a wonderful, wonderful visit here to the Redford Theater. I want to encourage everyone, please, go to their website, learn about the movies that are coming out, and visit the theater. As always, you can see every episode we've done by visiting our website at www.cultpop.com. We'll see you next time.